Emor, say, God's trumpet call presents, 8th reading from the Book of Leviticus, 31st reading from the Torah. Outline of Torah portion. Holiness required of priests. Leviticus chapter 21, verse 1 to verse 24. Leviticus chapter 21 begins with the phrase, "And the Lord said to Moshe," which is different from the usual phrase we see in previous chapters. "And the Lord spoke to Moshe." The Hebrew words for spoke and said carry the thought of conveying a message. The word daber is used if you need to tell the people what to do, but amar if the task is so complex and require people working together in a partnership. The Lord uses the word amar, directing Moshe to say to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them. The same word is repeated twice. "Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for the dead among his people." Leviticus chapter 21, verse 1. Aaron's calling to priesthood was apart from any personal merit, so also his sons and his descendants. Unlike Yeshua HaMashiach, who was made a priest based on an oath recorded in the Psalms. The instructions in this chapter are to be conveyed to all the priests who descended from Aaron. In the previous chapters, laws for holiness of the entire community have been given. They were for both laymen and priests. But the Lord set apart the priests in a unique way. So additional requirements are given to the priest. None shall defile himself for the dead among his people. Priests were forbidden from touching dead bodies, enter the house where a dead person was, help prepare or carry a dead body. Priests did not have the freedom the lay people had. Gracious exception was made in the event of his own relative nearest to him, his mother, father, his son, his daughter, and brother and virgin sister who was never married and is therefore dependent on him. Holiness required of priests. In the list of persons for whom the priest can defile himself, wife is not included. The only sensible answer for this could be that, according to Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, the man and the woman became one flesh when they married. So in the event of the death of wife, there is a state of profanation that exists. They shall not make any bald place on their heads, nor shall they shave the edges of their beards, nor make any cuttings in their flesh. This refers to the way pagan nations express grief when someone died. The priests were not to imitate the practices of the pagans. The same law was given to Israel in general in Leviticus chapter 9, verse 27 to 28, and explicitly extended to the priests. Priests were not to change their appearance in outward sense of mourning, but were to reflect God's glory always. They shall be holy to their God, not to profane the name of their God. Explanation for the reasons of prohibitions given. Also, they are the priests who present Adonai with offerings made by fire, the bread of their God. Therefore, the priest must be holy. Holiness required of priests. They shall not take a wife who is a harlot or a defiled woman, nor shall they take a woman divorced from her husband, for the priest is to be holy to his God. Rules prohibiting contact and mourning for the dead which could defile a priest were given. Now rules prohibiting certain contacts with the living which could defile a priest are given. A woman who was a prostitute, even if she was reclaimed, could not become a wife of a priest. A defiled woman native or a foreigner could not become a wife of a priest. A priest could not marry a divorced woman, as this would be considered unholy and incompatible with his position as a priest of God. Verse 8 states, "Therefore you shall consecrate him, for he offers the bread of your God. He shall be holy to you. For I, the Lord, who sanctify you, I am holy." This shows that each priest was to hold every other priest accountable for their marriages, so that marriages outside these guidelines will not take place. The priest was to be holy, and they were to be holy for one another. The reason is Adonai who sanctified them. They were to be holy because the Lord who set them apart as holy. The daughter of any priest, if she profanes herself by playing the harlot, she profanes her father. She shall be burned with fire. Holiness expected of a priest is also extended to his household, to his immediate family members. A daughter of a priest had a special responsibility to remain pure. Holiness required of priest. The high priest. The high priest had a special responsibility to honor and illustrate the holiness of God. High priest had a special anointing with oil and had a special garments to wear. The title given for the high priest is HaKohen HaGadol, that priest, the great one. The common priests were commanded not to defile themselves for the dead, except in the case of certain close relatives. The high priest was prohibited from mourning or contact with any dead body, even his own father and mother. The high priest shall take a wife in her virginity. The standard for the high priest even higher. His wife had to be a virgin of his own people. He shall not profane his posterity. He had to raise his children before the Lord and not profane them by dedicating them to the gods of the pagan nations. When we read high priest and his special anointing and garments, we consider Yeshua HaMashiach, who was a high priest, not in the order of Aaron, but after the order of Melchizedek. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 1 to 11. Ministering priests must be free from physical defects. Verses 16 to 24. The Lord set standard for those who would come before him in service, the priests. They were to be free from any physical defects. Every animal brought for sacrifices to the Lord had to be without blemish. And the priest who offers the sacrifice also had to be without blemish. The perfection was only in comparison to others. The perfect offering and perfect offerer was fulfilled in Yeshua HaMashiach. 12 physical abnormalities are listed. A priest can't be blind or lame, or with a marred face, a limb too long, who has broken foot or broken hand, a hunchback or a dwarf, has a defect in his eye or eczema or scab, or is an eunuch. Descendants of Aaron, the priest, who had a defect, is not to come near to offer the offerings made by fire to the Lord. He was permitted to eat the bread of his God, the most holy and the holy, but not go near the veil or approach the altar. He is not to profane the sanctuary, for the Lord sanctifies them. Acceptable offerings. Leviticus chapter 22 verse 1 to chapter 22 verse 33. In the Leviticus chapter 22, more specific instructions were given to the priest. The Lord commanded the priests to separate themselves from the holy things of the children of Israel. The priests of Israel deal with things that had been declared holy, such as the furniture of the tabernacle belonged to God, not to the priest. Holy things also referred to the sacrificial meat and produce that were offered to the Lord. Priests had to observe separation from these things. Failing to do so was to profane God's holy name. A priest with uncleanness was not to go near holy things. A priest who does so shall be cut off from God's presence. No one could come near holy things while ritually impure. He was not to eat holy offerings until he washes his body with water and be clean at sundown. The priests were to keep God's ordinances. If they profane it, they will bear their sin and die. Only the priest and his household could eat of the offerings. Priest's daughter married to an outsider may not eat of the holy offerings. If she is a widow or divorced and has no child, and returned to the father, she may eat her father's food. If a man eats the holy offerings unintentionally, he is to restore a holy offering to the priest and then add 1/5 to it. The offerings must be made without blemish or defect. Whatever has a defect will not be acceptable on behalf of the offerer. Animals that are blind, maimed, or have an ulcer or eczema or scab is not to be offered to the Lord. A bull or lamb that has any limb too long or too short may be offered as a freewill offering, but not as a vow. What is bruised or crushed is not to be offered to the Lord. If an animal is less than 8 days old, it is not acceptable as an offering. From the 8th day and thereafter it is accepted. God prohibited killing the mother and the young on the same day. To do so was a fertility ritual in Canaan. God prohibited that practice. The Lord commanded the priest to keep his commandments and perform them. For his is the Lord. Not to profane his holy name, but honor his name among the children of Israel. For he is the one who sanctifies and has brought them out of the land of Egypt to be the God of Israel.